Welcome to episode number 10 of the Castbar. Hype over 6.1 continues to grow, but is this the true patch or just a glorified balancing of the game? Blizzard's recent anniversary gift to veteran players has some players up in arms. Next thing we know, they're going to be begging for a dedication ring. We break out the surgical tools for a closer look on Transmog and purge ourselves of a fiery raid review. Thank you and enjoy. Welcome everybody to the Castbar, the World of Warcraft podcast channeling your content with no interrupts. Today is Sunday, January 19th? No, 18th. It is roughly 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. With me I have Evan.
How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great. And back from being sick and from the dead, Florian.
How's it going, guys?
It's going good. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Oh yeah, I feel a lot more human than I did last week.
Did you get a chance to listen to the interview with the people at WoW Economy?
At WoW Economy?
The episode last week when we interviewed WoW Economy.
It wasn't WoW Economy at all.
It was
not WoW. Yeah, you're right. WoW competitive WoW. Sorry.
Yeah, I listened to the majority of it. I didn't get through the whole thing though.
Okay. Did we miss anything that you would have liked us to add or ask?
Not really. It felt pretty comprehensive.
Okay. Just want to make sure. I just want to make sure you weren't like, no, why didn't you ask them this? What have you guys been doing this week? Anything going on?
I've been sticking to my regular raid schedule on Fridays. Had another good run, making some progress. We've started dipping our toes in heroic mode, which is a pretty good accomplishment for a little casual group. You know, not everybody can be there every week, so we're just trying to fill in the gaps with gear and everything, and just keep on plugging away. Still haven't downed him normal Imperator as a group, but hopefully before too long we'll be beating him to submission as well.
But are you digging into heroic?
We are digging into heroic mode. We just got a first heroic kill on Kargith with mostly guild run, and just trying to bolster our numbers a little bit with some dedicated folks. But we still have a pretty strong close-knit core, which is what I've always preferred in a raiding group.
Right on. What about you, Florian? Besides horrible death, did you manage to do anything while you were sick?
I got a little bit done. I've been trying to go through and do some legacy raids to pick up stuff I've wanted from the past, and also been working on the Shadowmourne questline, which has been a long process, which will continue for a much longer time too, probably.
Well, on the note of the Shadowmourne questline, I completed mine this week.
Nice.
Yeah, I had pretty substantial luck, actually, with the Shadowfrost shards. I wish you the best of luck, because at first I was not looking forward to it, because my first week was 5 shards, second week 5 shards, and then I got 10, 10, 10, 10. So it took me all of like 6 or 7 weeks instead of possibly like 20 or however many it could have taken. So I got very fortunate on that. And it was entertaining, though, because like 3 days before I completed it, I bought the Reigns of the Crimson Death Charger for like 18k on the auction house. It's the only one. I'm assuming that I didn't know it was worth more. So now I have an extra Reigns that I don't know what to do with. In addition, I also managed to get every single one of my secondary professions on my main up to 700.
Nice.
Woohoo! Yeah! I don't even know what I'm going to do with any of them. Like, first aid is still really useless. Cooking is not that great. Yeah, they're just there. Archaeology is there. Which is really frustrating because the orc, the original orc archaeology fragments will give you a headdress of the first shaman. The new orc clans will give you the same thing. It's just a higher item level.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I was not impressed.
Same Yeah.
It's the exactly
texture.
same item, but the other one, the original one is like an epic, and it's like item level like 147, and you can use it at like level like 42. It's some random level. And the new one is item level 620, and you can use it at item level 91. So I mean, technically, it's I can use it on my shaman, but my shaman already had like a 610 helm, so I'm like, woo!
Interesting. Oh, that's a little bit disappointing. I wish they had taken it in a further direction. But did you get any of the pets or anything?
I currently have a solve available for a pet. It's the well, I can just look real quick. It's the one for the Arakoa, the ancient Nest Guardian. It's a little robot that looks like the robots they have all over the Arakoa
cool.
place. It takes
I like
250 fragments, and I'm just not into that right now.
Well, don't forget that you can pick up a lot of relic pieces to solve those in little
ciphers?
chests. Yeah, the ciphers.
Yeah, I think I've already done all of my treasure hunting in Spires of Iraq, so I don't know if there's actually any more fragments that I can go hunt down.
Yeah.
But I do have, I think, how many fragments am I allowed to use on this thing? 4 or 5? You can use a lot on it. 4.
But mostly just a lot of digging.
Yeah, so I just need to go do it, but it's not like it goes away, so I can always just go get it whenever I feel like going to get it. But yeah, so I've had a pretty productive week. There was something else, but I seem to have already forgotten it.
Was there anything on your long-term archaeology wish list, or is the entire list of items in Draenor just not all that?
The only things that I haven't seen what's all in the archaeology solves from Draenor. I mean, within the first week, I got a rare solve, and I think it was the clans. It was a rare solve for the clans, I think, and it might have been Ogre. Yeah, it was Ogre. And I don't actually remember. And it was something Beak Breaker, and it's a 620 Agi / strength mace that you can use at item level 91, and that was nice. Because I just find weapons to be much more useful. Beak Breaker of Turok. Yeah, there we go. That was pretty useful because weapons really give you a big boost of power if you get stronger ones at lower levels. Anyway, I just rambled on a whole bunch, so let's actually get into the news. Welcome to the news, everyone. First thing on the list for the news is that we had the 6.1 patch notes last week, which we covered a few things on, and with the 6.1 going live onto the PTR, the build actually had even more stuff in it. There's probably plenty of people all over the place that are talking about this. You can see it on pretty much every WoW website. Every podcast probably has something to say about it. We have a little bit, a couple things that make us happy, a couple things that make us sad, but we're not going to spend too much time on this. The first one is one that we've talked about a lot, just because it is so beneficial, and that's the trait Scavenger on your followers. It gives you currently a 200% boost to garrison resources for follower missions, and it's being nerfed down to 100%. Yeah, it makes me sad.
Well, we did, wish the garrison resources weren't so trivial.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't have anything that generates garrison resources anymore. Even so, this still might actually yield more than enough to supply what I do with it.
Yeah, I think this is just going to be, I think it's a better compromise than trying to create some kind of sink for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe not necessarily create a sink, but reduce the need for a sink. I don't know if that's what you were implying.
Well, I think if they had to try to develop some kind of system that would let us spend a ludicrous amount of garrison resources, like we were talking about the rush orders and all the other things that we could have, used garrison resources to buy, I think this is a better solution. Just reduce the amount that is overflowing out of our pockets.
Well, that being said, when I was leveling up my professions, my secondary professions, like cooking, I had gotten up to like 665 or something with nothing but the saberfish. But after that, they didn't yield a bonus anymore, so I needed to actually like make real things. I I have a trading post, so I just went and bought all of the materials I needed through my trading post with my huge stack of garrison resources.
Right.
And then I did it again for first aid.
Yeah, just gotta make sure you do it on the right day.
Yeah. Which I found because all the cooking things need a fish and a meat, it didn't matter because the days that the fish are cheap, the meat's going to be expensive. They're never both cheap. So that was something I just dealt with. But I still, even with buying like tons and tons of stacks of meat to get my cooking the rest of the way up, I'm still sitting on like 3,000 resources.
Nice.
But this scavenger nerf will make it where I don't feel like I'm always going to be swimming in resources. I'll probably still be able to use garrison resources without any problems to buy my 2 seals each week, because that's only 900 resources. But it does mean that the abundant amount we have should be significantly lessened over time, because you will have to spend them for it to go down.
All right. Florian, do you think it's a good change, or do you think it's just a kind of dumb Band-Aid?
I think it's a reasonable change because we, at least as far as I'm concerned, now that I've upgraded my garrisons on my main and my main alt, I've pretty much got no use for garrison resources, and I'm just starting to have these massive overflowing amounts of resources. So I can kind of see what they were going for there, but I still think that with no upgrades and nothing significant to spend it on, we're still going to see just a general upward trend in terms of the amount of resources everyone has. So I think they need some kind of sync aside from just the seals. Maybe some kind of future garrison upgrade we can get or something like that, but I think there should be something else.
And we'll see what they add. I mean, we know that there's going to eventually... They have already said they're going to expand on garrisons, so maybe it'll get more expensive later. Who knows? Or maybe, it's just going to be one of those things of that it's just, it's kind of too late to fix it, so we'll just do this to make it seem less like a problem and then move along. It's not great, but there are times, like, you'll get the 300 garrison resource mission, and you walk away with 1.2 thousand because you had 2 scavengers, and it's just like, wow, that was nice.
That's a pretty rare mission, though, but still...
I still feel like I get it every week.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it once.
Oh, I'm very sorry then.
It seems RNG is on your side lately.
Nice.
Next thing is something that I am personally incredibly excited about, and that is alchemy gets to become a real profession. Because we have so little we're able to do right now, and we're going to be able to do what I mentioned previously of have transmutes, since we didn't have any for some preposterous reason. So we'll be able to turn the sorcerer's fires into waters, and I think from what the PTR shows, we're able to turn them into anything else that we want. So fire can turn into earth, water, air, and etc. What I was surprised about is they're giving us the ability to transmute. I don't know if it's daily or not, but we will have a transmute to create savage bloods.
I think it's not going to be daily. I think it's going to be limited on the amount of actually, alchemical catalysts aren't buying a pickup, are they?
No, they're not. You can buy them on the auction house.
And they're pretty cheap from what I remember.
They're really cheap. And you only need 50 of them to create a savage blood. What this might do, incidentally, is, one, give alchemists some actual money, since flasks are literally selling for, like, dirt right now. It'll give alchemists some money, and it'll also hopefully drive down the price of savage bloods, which will, again, drive down the price of all of the crafted gear, which we've already talked about.
Absolutely.
Which I don't know if that's good or bad, but the thing that I do see this being good for is not necessarily that crafting gear getting cheaper, but this will allow the upgrading items, the burnished essences and whatever all the other ones are called that'll upgrade something from 640 to 655 and so on. Because in 6.1 we are getting the ability to upgrade our items again. So they'll be a tier 4 and it takes them to 670 for weapons and 680 for armor. So and each one of these tiers requires like 50 savage bloods each, which that's why those upgrade items are so expensive, because of the bloods needed.
It's only about 15 each, but yeah, it's still pretty expensive when they're running at about 1,000 to 1,200 a piece.
Right. So if that makes bloods cheaper, that makes those upgrades items cheaper, which makes it more reasonable to look towards getting upgrades through professions.
Right.
Which the next item was stage 4 crafted items, which we already mentioned on. The last thing is that Alchemist, it's strange because the Alchemist item that they're adding is a new trinket, and it's upgradable all the way to item level 680, I believe, but it's not bind on equip. So we can't sell items, but I guess being able to craft bloods is pretty nice.
Right. Well, the Philosopher's Stone or whatever was always just an alchemist only item in all previous expansions.
Right.
But
go ahead.
Yeah, this is going to be the first time where it's been useful past the basically the dungeon tier, because in Mystic Pandaria the alchemy trinket was useless after MSV, I believe.
Yeah,
it's just kind of like the Dark Moon Fair trinket as well. The Draenor card, or the tarot card or whatever. Those have always been kind of useful at the very beginning of the expansion, and then it kind of just drops off. But now with this upgrade system, it seems like they're allowing those craft items to stay more relevant, which I guess is adding value to the inscription and alchemy professions.
Right. And we still don't have a big item we can sell, but at least we can make the bloods. And based on the math of, like, if you have a alchemy lab and you have someone working there and you do use your daily cooldown, you'll be able to make just short of 1 blood a day. Because you get like 4, I want to say it's 4 catalysts if you have a follower each time they complete. So I guess it's more like 1.5 every 2 days, because you get 1 from the garrison every 2 days roughly, because you get 24 in a day, so 48 in 2 days, so you'd be 2 short. And then you get 10 each time on your daily, so it's not too bad.
Absolutely not, no. I like them bringing down the price of Savage Blood. It seems like it's a little bit too exclusive at the moment, but it was exclusive for a period of time for people who were pushing the cutting-edge content. Now it's opening up a little bit the floodgates, especially with 4 stages. If you want to get a new piece, upgrading it 4 times is going to be costly no matter what. I like the idea they're kind of bringing it in line with the cost of just buying any other 680 piece or 670 weapon.
I have 2 questions for you guys. So one is what you just said. Obviously, this isn't going to change, but what would your opinion be on items on these upgrade items, instead of needing one to take it to 655, another one to take it to 665, another one to take it up to 680? What would your opinion be on if there was one that it essentially cost the same amount of resources, just instead it just took it straight up to 680?
Perfectly good idea. I mean, there's absolutely no reason to have to use multiple items if you can just do it with one item. That's just pretty much an unnecessary extra steps.
And my next question is, when Warlords of Draenor launched, everyone was complaining about the professions because all this time gating. Time gating was, just this horrible, bad scar on the game. Do you guys still feel this way?
So I'll let Florian
Yes.
field it. Do you have any impressions there?
Yes and no. I kind of feel it's made it better for casual players who can just have more of an easy time with crafting and don't have to spend as much time playing the game and getting everything they need. But as far as... let me see how to put it. I think it's hurt crafting somewhat in general because you can't make as much as you want, and that is causing some problems for the market. Like, for one thing, it's going to keep the prices of items up higher than they would otherwise be. Because, for example, I might have enough... For example, right now I have enough true iron ore that if I really wanted to, I could make probably dozens of crafted items on my blacksmith. But the fact is that I can only make one maybe every several days because of the time gating. And that's causing prices to remain artificially high and keeping upgrades artificially difficult to get. Whereas in the past, crafted gear has been relatively cheap on the auction house. Here it's kind of stayed more highly priced. And I don't think that's generally good for the player population.
Right. But I would disagree with the fact that it's bad for the market. I think it's actually better for the market, mostly because it shifts the value from the actual materials, which would be the true iron ore you're overflowing with. A lot of people are overflowing with it. It shifts that to the time invested by the actor player itself. And when you shift the value away from the ore, then you're shifting power out of the hands of botters and gold farmers, honestly.
The reason that I asked, I did not like the time gating when we first got into it, because I wanted things for the character that I was leveling up, for the character that I was going to go into raids with and all of that stuff. Now that character is already established, and its gear is mostly already out of the range of the crafted gear, unless I had 2 sets of the upgrade items, I am seeing that unless I want to sell it, I have a very large amount of the crafted materials. I could make them and sell them, I guess, but I don't feel the need to. One, because I have enough money right now that I feel comfortable with. I mean, I could stack cash, I guess, if I wanted to, but that's another topic. But, I mean, on my jewel crafter, I have 300 talidite crystals and not really anything to do with them. Same with my blacksmith. I have 200 or so of the true steel ingots, and it's just I don't know what I really want or need to craft with this, because none of it really feels impactful right now, and the characters that I did want that boost on, I've already got it on. I've already made their gear, and this is just so much extra that is sitting around.
Right, well, I mean, I would just probably invest in making those upgrade trinkets, the upgrade items, the essences and all that. I feel like with the salvage blood price going down, investing in enough salvage blood to make an essence and put it on the auction house isn't going to cost 15,000 gold anymore, And I think that's going to lower the, entry limit, the capital limit for people who are just trying to make some money off of that instead.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I guess that's fair. It just seemed odd to me because now my professions are quickly, to me, becoming less relevant because I've already made the things that I've wanted / needed. But that's a little bit off topic. So let's go into the next item. The next item is the physical 10th anniversary gift. If you haven't seen the pictures flying all over the place, Blizzard sent out these physical, they're what would you say, guys? 10 inches tall, maybe?
Yeah, a little pewter statue.
Yeah, it's a pewter statue. It's an exact replica of the orc that is out front of the Blizzard building. It's an orc on a wolf. And it's only for people who subscribe to the game within 60 days of the game being launched. So you had to have created your account before January 24th of 2005. And if you never dropped your subscription in that entire 10-year period, then they mailed you one of these for free. What is your guys' immediate opinion on this?
Immediate opinion is I'm glad they got a statue for being suckered through staying through all of Pandaria.
Sad. Evan,
yeah.
What about you?
I think it's just a little bit, hold on. My immediate thought was a little bit of disappointment. Because I did subscribe within 2 days of release and all, so I thought originally I was going to be eligible, but then this second stipulation was so out of reach that it seemed a little bit unfair. I mean, I can understand that you have a lot of people coming back for Draenor these days. If you just simply gave it to people who were subscribed within 60 days of release and happened to be playing on an active subscription right now, then that would have been a lot of little statues to send out. So I imagine, yeah, it's understandable that they would be, sending them out to this limited number rather than a whole bunch. But maybe it would have been a little bit more understandable if they sent it out to people who had bought every single expansion, paid full price or bought it as the expansion released. I bought the original game within a couple days of release, and I bought every single expansion within a couple days of the release of that expansion. And that would have been a little bit more of an understandable, limitation, because I feel like I'm still there with them. I'm still passionate about the game and all, but just real life kind of gets in the way, and I've had to go through college and everything. And I mean, I feel like a little bit shafted. Honestly, I'm going to be honest about that.
I think a lot of people do. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, because, like, 10 years of constant subscription, like, I understand you want, like, rewarding these people for that, but at the same time, you are possibly offending people that are just as dedicated as the other people. That maybe someone got deployed to Iraq 3 years ago and were gone for a year, but because they're not going to pay for a year that they're not here, but now that person doesn't get one.
Right. It's just a question of what are they actually rewarding here? Is it... I mean, I don't understand. Like, what are they rewarding?
Giving them money for 10 years straight.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think it really necessarily has anything to do with dedication to the game. It just has to do with, were you able to stay subscribed for 10 years straight?
Right.
I mean, I feel like there should have been a way that, I mean, because some people who might contribute an enormous amount to the game play it a lot. I mean, they might not have gotten into the game until Burning Crusade. Is that their fault that they didn't start playing earlier? No. Are they any less worthy of getting a reward? I don't think so.
Right. Yeah, it's just, it's tough. It's a little bit sore. And I'm kind of surprised they did this. I mean, I understand if you had a 10-year-old game and you're trying to look for a way to reward people who have been with you since the beginning, you know, if that was a quote you're going to use, people who have been with us since the beginning. I mean, it seems like a pretty special sentiment to include those people in like kind of an exclusive sort of gift and everything, but it's just, man, I just wanted a cool statue, you know?
Well, and that's the thing of, like, I would like it too, but Blizzard isn't selling them on their store, and on eBay they're going from anywhere from $500 to like $1,200. And that's the other thing, is that they're just being sold.
Well, that's understandable too.
But, I mean, I would like one. I mean, I love Blizzard. We're doing a podcast about Blizzard about their game because we love their game. Now, I'm not saying that doing a podcast is a reason that you should give me a statue. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we have a lot of love and dedication to the game, but because, I mean, the game came out when I was 12.
Right.
I did not have $15 a month to pay to Blizzard to subscribe to this game. I think I played Warcraft 3 for like 3 more years because it didn't cost me money, because my mom told me no, because I was 12. So,
exactly.
You know, but do I love the game any less? I have been pretty dedicated to the game. I've taken breaks, but I just, even though I wasn't in your situation, Evan, where you were there from the very beginning, I still feel as though I should have had some way to attempt to still get one, instead of just, oh no, sorry, you were too young when the game came out, so there's no way you can get a statue.
Yeah, anybody who was able to receive Hate Spark during the Molten Core raid is also being mailed a tiny statue of Hate Spark.
Are they?
No, I'm joking.
Oh, I was like, they better not be, because that's crap. He only had a 10% chance to drop. And he's being sold for like 100,000 gold. And I'm like, that is not how that should have worked, Blizzard.
I'm just going to say, I don't think anybody wants to listen to us bellyache over the whole thing. Yeah, it was a little bit disappointing. I wonder, the only 2 points I have is, I wonder if they'll be doing more things like this in the future, sending out physical gifts to people who are exceptional by whatever definition they choose. Also, my second point is, do you think going forward people are going to be thinking twice before they cancel their subscription when they hit a financial rough spot, or if they have to be deployed, or, for example, be away for more than a month? Are people going to think twice?
I don't think they should have to. Like, I don't think that's fair. Because, like, maybe they will, but at the same time, it's like, you shouldn't feel pressured to keep your subscription so that you can possibly get something cool that no one else will get that you won't get if you drop your subscription. Like, I feel like this should have been a gift that's sent out if you were subscribed for a year straight, or if you maybe not if you were, but when you hit a certain point, kind of like the Blizzard gifts for employees. After your first year, you get like, what is it, a ring, and then a stein, and then a sword, and then a shield.
Definitely.
After you hit a certain number of years, I feel like this is how that should have worked. Do you have a full 2 years worth of time that you've been subscribed to the game? Yes.
Exactly.
Cool. You can have a statue. Have you been subscribed? Once you hit 5 years, cool. We'll send you this. Once you hit, for the people that have been subscribed 10 years, you can still attain this after you hit a spot.
That would be a little bit more understandable. Florin, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I really don't have a problem with them sending out the statue, because I guess it's because I don't like statues, so I really don't care that I'm not getting it. But it kind of reminds me of other MMOs that have like veteran reward programs, where if you say subscribe for so many months, you get something. Like usually in-game items, like 3 months, you might get like a hat. If you stay for 6 months, you might get like a nicer hat or something like that. And it kind of reminds me of that, only with a physical object. And I really don't have any problem with those kinds of systems. So now the only issue is that if people continue to stay subscribed, like someone subscribed 1 year after WoW launched, and they say subscribe until next year, and then they hit 10 years, if they don't get a statue, then that's not cool. And I'm sure they won't.
And that's what I'm saying. That was like, I like that idea of a system. I mean, and there was also people that like have show that like email Battle.net. I started my account on January 25th of 2005. I don't get one. And it's like, well, and I guess they do technically have to say some cutoff date of some kind, but at the same time, that still feels really crappy. It's like, I bought the game 61 days after it came out, and it's been subscribed for 10 years, but I don't get a statue because I didn't buy it a day earlier because my paycheck came late.
I mean, regardless of how much they would have relaxed the criteria, there would always be a kind of a cutoff, and there are still going to be people, no matter how you define the criteria, that would have almost qualified. And so you can't spare
and that's why I said you have to set the cutoff somewhere. But as like, I guess prestigious might be the right word. With as prestigious as this statue feels, that still feels terrible.
Yeah, no, and I'm questioning whether or not it was even a good decision to have done this at all.
I don't think so.
It seems silly to argue about it.
I realize there's nothing we can do about it, but I'm still aggravated over this.
It seems silly to be aggravated, but yeah.
Even though I don't get close to the criteria at all. I mean, I took like a year break and I didn't start until Wrath, so I mean, my account is hopeless at even thinking of qualifying, but it's still not. Go ahead.
I don't feel bad for people who get exclusive prestigious gladiator mounts for having worked hard in the seasons. I don't feel bad for people who reach gold cap and buy anything they want in the black market. I don't feel bad for people who buy the collector's edition every single time expansion comes out and has all that exclusive prestigious content by paying a little bit extra. But
I feel like all of that is different, though.
It is different.
Like with gladiator mount, it makes me sad how cool they are and that I can't go get any of the old ones. But at the same time, I know that if I really wanted to, I could just dedicate myself to PvP and get one. Assuming, obviously, that I have the ability to, get to that level of play. But it's still an option. Whereas, for many people, this wasn't an option.
Yeah. I'm pretty curious as to what the actual numbers are of people who qualify for this reward in general. Like, are we talking hundreds?
I really don't know, and I haven't seen any numbers for it. So your guess is as good as mine.
That would be interesting.
One last little thing on news, and that's veteran account status. So it used to be that trial accounts, which were, your starter accounts almost, you could have one, and then after that, you were able to play it as much as you want, but your character couldn't get past level 20, and you weren't able to join a guild or trade, anything like that. And this sucked for people that felt like they wanted to just, turn back, not necessarily turn their account back on, but, just kind of see if they wanted to play the game again. If they had a prior account, you weren't able to. That account was inactive, so you would have to start a new one. which just was very not cool. So Blizzard is changing it to where if you have an account and it's inactive, it becomes a veteran status, which allows you to play in this trial mode. So you can play any character as long as it's level 20 or lower. You can't play any higher than that. You can play as much as you want at that low level. And then the other thing to note on this is that they did say, though, that if you are playing in veteran status, you can have your character invited to a guild if one of your other characters is already in that guild.
Yeah, it's the only difference I think they're putting on it. The only thing I'm curious about is that there's a gold limit of like 10 gold or so, 20 gold maybe on trial accounts, and if you unsubscribe with thousands or hundreds of gold, how would they navigate that?
Who knows? There wasn't a whole lot of detail on it. I imagine we'll get more detail when the patch actually gets closer, but it is cool that they're doing this for people.
I've got one major observation is that if you have a character and you put it at max level and cancel your account, resubscribe under veteran status, trial mode, and the only thing you like to do is PvP, or even, I guess, PvE, honestly, you can enjoy all of endgame content. There's nothing, you're not leveling up. I mean, if you don't really care about gold, if you can be self-sufficient or whatever, work underneath the gold limit, especially with PvP, you can just play the entire game. I don't think that they're limiting anything, and just have that, it's basically a free-to-play MMO.
Well, you can't play on characters that are over level 20.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because that's the way the trial account works. You can't get over level 20, and with the veteran status, you're not able to play characters that are higher than level 20.
Is that right? Okay.
From my understanding, I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain that is how it read.
I was just under the impression you would not be gaining any experience points. You wouldn't be able to level up past level 20, but if you already had a level 100 character, you could play that as much as you want.
Yeah, I don't believe that's how it worked. If it did, awesome.
Interesting.
But I don't believe so.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So you can make a new character, level them up to 20, dig around or whatever, and it's on your account. So if you resubscribe, you'll have that level 20 character there.
Right.
Interesting. Okay.
So who knows? I mean, I could see like people that just want to run their guild but don't really play the game, because I mean that really is something that people enjoy, is just the management portion of some things. I could see someone just not upping their account and just running everything from a level 20 dude.
Yeah.
But who knows? It's just I'm glad that Blizzard's doing this. This is a nice little change for their more veteran players. Let's go into a closer look. Welcome to a closer look. Closer look is a section that we do in the show that we zoom in and really just pick apart something that's in the game. It's very rarely ever necessarily news related. It could be a feature. It could be even as simple as like, how does a druid beat a rogue or a death knight in PvP? It's just whatever we really feel like just giving a little bit of extra discussion about that really might not be something that you would read on the front page of MMO Champion. And this week we're going to be taking a look at the Transmog system. And the first thing we're going to present is, what is Transmog? You might not know. I hope you do. It's a really fun system. What Transmog is, it allows you to change your weapon and your gear to look like other pieces of gear. It has to be the same armor type or the same weapon class, and I'll explain what that is in just a moment. So you can change a cloth helm to look like any other cloth helm. And this allows you to just kind of customize your character a little bit. We first saw this system in Diablo, and it's made its way into Warcraft, and I'll explain a little bit I hope they continue to take the Diablo route with things. And what I meant by weapon classes is that, like, two-handed weapons, as long as you're able to wield any two-handed weapon, you can transmog them to the other two-handed weapons. So, like, if your weapon is a two-handed sword and you have a two-handed mace in your bank, you can transmog it to a two-handed mace if you're able to use two-handed maces. Which I don't believe there's any class that can wield one but not the other. Shamans can wield two-handed maces but not swords.
No, they can. I don't think they do two-handers at all.
They can wield two-handed maces still. It never was taken away from them. And you can even wield them as elemental and restoration, but there aren't any two-handed maces with int on them, so it's kind of like meh.
Finkel's Lava Dredger.
However, well, that is old, sir. One thing to note, and this is specifically about shamans. This is a fun thing if you are a shaman. A staff is a two-handed weapon. And so if you have a staff, you as a shaman, you can transmog your staff into a two-handed mace.
Oh, nice.
A couple little things like that we'll go over in a little bit. So I love transmog. I know lots of people that do. I know some people that change their transmog every week. I personally normally find just one that I like and stick with it for at least a month, if not longer. Evan, how do you really look at transmog?
Let's see. Basically, I started getting into Transmog last expansion of Miss Pandaria. I didn't play too much over Cataclysm. And basically, I had my monk, and I was doing Siege of Orgrimmar, and I had the monk tier set, but I didn't like the fact that it had the skirt, so I changed my pants. And then I had some of like the BOE gloves that were actually more part of the rogue set, so I transmogged those to look like the monk set. So I had most of the monk set pieces, and I wanted them all to look like the monk set pieces, so I could just have that monk set there. And did that, and then also I was really unhappy with the little drilly hammer drilly thing. So I found the cool sword graphic, and I like to change my weapons to that. So I found a look that I liked, and was able to sit with that for a couple months.
Right on. And Florin, how about you?
I've done a bit of transmog on and off. I'm not a huge fan of the system, mostly because I feel it's pretty clunky and poorly designed. But I do collect a lot of stuff for transmog, which is mostly ends up just being worn for role-playing purposes. I actually just picked up all the various variants of Tier 10 from ICC.
Nice. And you're currently playing as a warlock?
Well, a Death Knight has become my main. I kind of got bored with the warlock. It wasn't as fun as I expected.
Fair enough, and that's a risk of boosting, but that's another different topic. So, a couple of things we wanted to give you on real quick is probably your best resources for transmog, because there's so many pieces of armor out there now from so many different sources that it can be really hard to really pin. You might have something in mind of what you'd like to look like, but you don't know where you could find the gear to get that. Probably one of the best resources that I can think of is called Mogit. It's an add-on. You can get it. I think you have to get it through Curse. You don't have to have the client for Curse, but you can just download it from Curse. And what it is it is a add-on that you are able to view every single item in the game. But instead of just being a list of items, it has it separated out of like showing you the models on your character holding it or wearing it, and it'll be like, I want to see all of the plate shoulders, and it'll go, cool, here's all of the plate shoulders starting from, and it descends in from highest item level to lowest, so you'll see whatever is current first on the system, and you can do that for all of them. So it's like, I want to see all of the two-handed swords, and you can see every single two-handed sword that's in the game.
And I imagine they're filtered via availability and class restrictions and all that, right?
Yes.
Meaning, if I only wanted to see Death Knight armor, if I wanted to make armor for my Death Knight, but I didn't want to see the warrior tier gear that I wouldn't be able to get, I'd be able to sort it that way.
It won't even show you, actually.
Okay.
It'll show you if there's an offset for it, like a non-tier piece that drops from a boss, you'll see that one. But
okay.
Valorous Spalders of Doomsaying or whatever, that are the warrior tier shoulders, and your Death Knight, you won't even see the shoulders. It won't show you something that you can't get.
Yeah, I've been after the Valorous Spalders of Doomsaying for a long time, but Overlord Ogre Man won't drop him. He just won't.
Rude.
Very, very sad.
Another thing you can look at is Wowhead, wowhead.com. If you don't go to Wowhead already for everything, you should think about it. It's a wonderful site. It has resources for practically everything. The comment section for all the items and stuff are very useful as well. But you're able to search by color on there. So if you're like, I really want to be a hunter that wears green, you can just divide it by green.
Right.
Divide it by green. That's
the color palette option. I think it's a little bit weird and wonky. I think they might take the entire skin and pull every hexadecimal value out from that thing and say,
is there green in it?
Yeah, if there's green in it. But yeah, I think if it can't find that exact green, you pick out the color palette. It'll do something similar. Anyway, it might be able to narrow 10,000 swords down to 500, that are vaguely similar to the color you picked. I actually used it to my success, finding a purple sword for my purple Death Knight, get up. So I'm actually happy that it worked out for the one, but I did have to still do a whole lot of sorting. It did speed things up a little bit if you're going to go for that approach. This Mogget thing sounds like it's a much faster ticket, though.
Mogget is wonderful. The other thing that Mogget also allows you to do, you can wish list items, so you can create a little save folder of all the items that you'd like to go get, and it'll tell you where to get them. You're also able to save sets, so you can sit there and Mogget and you put different pieces together and mix and match it and all that kind of stuff, and then you can save that set, and it'll tell you how many pieces you have from it.
Very nice.
The place that I store all of my transmog is in void storage, because void storage was created for stuff that you're never going to need. Transmog, you should never need that piece of gear, so stick it in there. I don't know what else you stick in void storage besides transmog gear. That's the only thing I found to stick in there. Because you have to pay to put things in and out, and it's just like, I think the only thing that's in there should be transmog, because that's just me. The last tool that I would advise using is the dungeon journal. Actually, your Shift J. You can look at the loot, and if you have Mogget installed incidentally, and you hover over any item, whether it's in chat or in the dungeon journal, it'll show you what the model looks like. So you don't have to control click everything. It just a little box pops up, and it'll show you what that looks like.
And then, of course, the auction house allows you to dressing room items that are in there as well. And in the absence of using Mogget or anything like that, I've gone through the auction house sorted by plate shoulders, for example, and then just gone through and clicking, and I assembled a set that way too. Did you want to talk about anything Transmog as it interacts with the auction house and the Transmog market in general?
That's a good point. I didn't put that in the show notes. Transmog is a huge market. There's tons of money to be had in Transmog. The market's smoothing out a little bit as it's easier to solo some stuff. However, there's always items that are very unique and very hard to find and are always worth lots. The ones that immediately come to mind are the BOE epics that fall off of the Burning Crusade world bosses. So if you've seen things like the Exodar Life Staff, which is the staff that Prophet Velen holds, that generally sells from anywhere from 20 to 40,000 gold. Wow. Eternium Nexus Reaver, it's a really cool looking two-handed axe that drops off of the giant Fell Reaver that spawns in front of Black Temple every 50 hours or whatever. He has a chance to drop this really nice looking, very unique two-handed BOE axe. And that sells for, I've seen it sell for 5,000, but normally it sells for more like 20,000. So it just really be thinking of anytime you see the words buy non equip, if you are somebody that would like some extra money, take a look at that and think, would someone possibly want to wear that? If you have the add-on Auctioneer, not Auctionator, I believe it's Auctioneer, and you do a scan of your auction house, which generally will take about an hour, whenever you pick up an item, it'll tell you what is the market value of that, and that is what value it has seen the item be sold for on the auction house. So if you're just looking for a little money, you can see it that way. Some things are not as valuable as you might think. Firelands is a raid we'll be talking about later. It has lots of BOE epics that drop in it. None of them are really worth more than 1 or 200 gold because so many people are killing Firelands, and they actually have a pretty substantial drop rate. So they're not worth nearly as much as we would like them to be. But just keep an eye out for BOE epics. There's some that drop in Karazhan, Sunwell. Now that I'm thinking about it, just like Burning Crusade has a lot of really good BOE epics that are very unique that a lot of people want.
And then also with the Salvage is making a lot of these BOE epics. I've gotten maybe 3 or 4 BOE epics from Salvage boxes as well.
Well, and the other thing with the Salvage Yard, and this is very specific, people, pay attention to this. Salvage Yard will give you items that are no longer in the game, which means they're immediately valuable to a ridiculous number of people. Whether they're worth a lot or a little, it doesn't matter because people really like the idea of, I can't get this anymore. So I specifically look for items that are able to be equipped below level 60. So anything in vanilla content, because that's where we lost a whole bunch of the gear. When Cataclysm came out and all that got revamped, a whole bunch of that stuff is gone or really, really difficult to get, or you can't get it anymore. So when you're opening your salvage crates, keep an eye out for items that their required level to equip are below level 60. Anything after that should be more than available in Burning Crusade, and always keep an eye out for BOE rares and epics.
And what about I had it a second ago. Oh yeah, is the Transmog market more voracious on RP servers than on PvE servers or
Yes.
PvP servers?
Yes.
Very, very much so.
Incredibly so, actually. Transmog is big on RP servers. It's huge. A transmog item that might sell for like 500 gold on your regular PvE raid server can easily sell for 5,000 or higher on an RP server. And don't think that it has to be cool looking. RP is really big on the RP servers. People will pay you like 1,000 gold for the BOE green that you have to be level 17 to equip that looks like nothing but leather boots.
Right, exactly.
Just plain leather boots.
There are some sets among the BOE greens, like Revenants, Pauldrons, Revenants, this and that. I think it's like a level 34 or something, a leather item, and it's like a white leather, I think, if I'm right, and identifying that one set. But when you pick up your Olive Branch of the Bear or whatever in vanilla content, leveling up a new character, that might be part of a set that if you get every single piece of that set, forms something that's actually continuous. And people are after that look a lot of the time.
Well, and people get very attached to their character and their backstory and stuff. It's no different than playing D&D, except you actually have a game to play it through. And so it's like, I am a, such and such. I would like to look like one and not look like this crazy monstrosity that my raid gear is making me look like.
Oh, gosh. So the only other angle about Transmog I guess we talk about is the new introduced to the Mists of Pandaria cosmetic items.
Right. These are frustrating because the things that I feel like should be cosmetic items aren't. The thing that immediately comes to mind, incidentally, a cosmetic item does not require it. They do not have a armor type associated with them. They are cosmetic, right, which means you can be any armor type and transmog it. And these are the only items that can do that. You can buy 3 special cosmetic helms off of the Blizzard Online store for $15 a piece, but there are a few very specific cosmetic items that you can get in the game currently, one of which is your faction's guard armor set. So Stormwind Knight or Orgrimmar Grunt, you can get their armor set from the... What is the Dwarven Bunker equivalent in the...
War Mill.
The War Mill? Okay.
Yeah.
Which those are the ones you turn in the iron scraps as well as little pieces of armor, and you can get the armor back. Those cosmetic pieces, I can be my clothy priest and look like I'm decked out in plate because I am wearing the Stormwind armor set.
Right.
Which is kind of fun, actually. And the only other cosmetic piece I've seen is the bloody bandana you get from the inn, which is the Rambo bandana.
Oh, yeah, the Inquest with the inn building new garrison.
The one item that immediately comes to mind that I was so upset that it wasn't cosmetic is the ruby stone or ruby colored sunglasses.
Oh yeah.
super rare engineering thing that
Mhm.
they're blue, and the pattern you can like only get from Blingtron at like a 0.01%. They're not easy to craft, and they sell for like 5,000 minimum on even non-RP servers, and you can't transmog them for whatever confounded reason. I do not know why, but you can't.
Interesting. That's a little bit of disappointment there.
I was disappointed. I bought them.
Oh no. Oh, you gotta do your research, man.
Well, because at the time I didn't realize that there was a specific thing that for the trait cosmetic. I was just getting into transmog. I didn't realize that cosmetic was actually a trait that was on armor. From my understanding at the time, armor just had to be green or better, so it just couldn't be white armor, and you'd be able to transmog it. Boy, was I wrong.
Wow. Well, okay. So the only other things there are to mention are the shaman, the dark shaman set from Siege of Orgrimmar. Now, are we in a position where we can start trying to farm that from the dark shaman encounter?
You are able to get it from that encounter still. I'm so glad they didn't. They didn't take that away from you. You're not really able to solo Siege of Orgrimmar though. I mean, it didn't get squished or anything like that. So I mean, before the squish, it was not very easy to solo Cataclysm content. Besides, like, you know, the very like what was it? You could solo like Bastion of Twilight and what's the other one? Blackwing Descent relatively easily if you were like a Blood Death Knight, but for some classes you just couldn't, and it was just difficult. I mean, that was the very last contents raids, but plenty of people couldn't solo Dragon Soul. Yes, people did it. That's not the point, but it wasn't easy.
There was a pretty exceptional Blood Death Knight who was able to solo Flex Mode Garrosh.
No, he soloed normal Garrosh.
Is that right?
Yeah. It wasn't even Flex, it was normal.
This is before the end of Miss Pandaria.
Yeah.
This is after patch 6.02.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's normal mode. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. He wasn't exploiting game mechanics. He was just ridiculous. He kept the wolf up, the shaman. He kept the wolf up so he could Dark Simulacrum, the chain lightning from it, to get extra damage on Garrosh so that he would have enough damage to end the fight.
Right, when the Shaw spawns. Yeah, that's interesting. I remember reading that, and it was very impressive. But that might be just Garrosh himself, and Dark Shamans might not have been possible at that point to solo, and still might not be possible at this point. But if you have a friend who is a tank, maybe, and you were a shaman, there is this set of gear called the Dark Shaman set. It's cosmetic. It drops in a box. You get every single piece at once if you're lucky enough to get the box itself. So it's not like you have to keep on going back for the boots and the pants and the gloves. Very lucky, very cool looking set. One of the only kind of armor sets of its kind. Unfortunately, the challenge mode gear from Miss Pandaria is no longer available. I hope that one day they will make that gear available again somehow.
I think they should.
I'm not holding my breath. They made it pretty clear that they would stop. They would cancel the availability of that gear when release hit, or when 6.1 hit. Yeah, that's when 6.01 hit, or 6.02 rather.
You can't see my face right now.
Is it a disappointed face?
Yeah, it's disappointed.
I tried that last week before 6.02. It just was a little bit too tough.
I got it on my shaman, and then I wanted it on other tunes as well, and then I went, no, and then I just said, all right, I will just accept the fact that I'm not going to be able to get them. A little bit off course, though. Moving into a couple other things. A couple of other things I wanted to note on Transmog is to take note of your race as well as your gender when you're looking at Transmog, because depending on your race and gender, things will scale differently. I mean, we've all seen the pictures of that gnome mounts are larger than Taurens because reasons.
There's some reasons.
So a couple things to note real quick. Male orcs, they make shoulders really big, so if you want these pair of shoulders to look really big, if you're a male orc, there you go. Female humans make weapons way too large. I don't know why. Like, female weapons rival Tauren weapons. And Taurens make everything bigger, in case you are wondering. But female humans really like to rock the weapons. They look really large. For whatever reason, they're scaled up to be quite large. Blood elves, really specifically female blood elves, make weapons teeny tiny. They make two-handed swords look like rapiers. Why? Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
If you are a troll, a tauren, a draenei, or a worgen, or a panda, well, panda a little bit less so, but those pseudo-monster races, shoes matter significantly less. They become like ankle bracelets for like draenei and trolls, or they become sandals, or because they have awkward feet, or they have hooves. They often their shoes function much differently. So I mean, the transmog portion on shoes is a lot less significant for those races. One big tip that I really want to give all of you is, even if you think you don't like it, keep every single belt. Maybe not every single one. I mean, if one is just absolutely hideous, like most of the Mist of Pandaria belts, you can get rid of it. But really, though, seriously, whenever you are looking at transmog and you've, like, you know, if you just went and, like, farmed Nax Ramus and you're selling off all your stuff that you don't want to keep, or it's not for your armor class or whatever, take a second look at the belt and see if you might ever use it. Because it might seem silly, but the belt can completely throw off the entire thing if you don't have the right one. And also, because like chest pieces and legs and stuff will have their own blending, the belt won't blend at all, and you'll get these really sharp lines. So more often than not, just keep your belts when you're doing transmogs, because it's terrible when you don't have one.
Speaking of belts, there are, for specialty sets and everything, there are a couple of belts that do not show up with any graphic whatsoever and are essentially invisible. Are you aware of this?
I have not seen any that are invisible. I have found some that are only like 1 pixel wide, but they still exist. But they only exist for cloth and male wearers. There isn't a leather or plate option.
Well, they've introduced a plate option with the... Wait, hold on. No, the Archerist Knight's Girdle, I think, is the belt that Death Knights start with, is invisible, and that's the only plate one I think that does exist, but it is worth mentioning, I think.
Which is only useful if you're a Death Knight.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's better than no plate at all. You know, it's one of the only 3 plate classes there. I will make another note on Taurens. If you can find a helmet that looks decent on a Tauren, congratulations. I think the same also goes for Worgen. The kind of posture of the neck and angle of the head and everything kind of makes anything that's supposed to be like a collar more like a lampshade.
Yeah, they're
like
bad.
That back from the vet.
Stick with crowns, circlets, anything like that. Stuff that floats above your head is really good.
Surprisingly, the crafted blacksmith, the gear from this expansion, looks decent.
Well, I think they realized that they need to focus more on how things actually fit on things, so they took a little bit more care.
Well, surprisingly, the Blackrock Orc transmog through the War Mill looks outrageous. It's like putting an entire, stove heater on my head. It reaches all the way down to my nipples, and it looks like it's a gargantuan pumpkin, I mean, it's the only reason I don't wear the Blackrock set on my Tauren.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've worked around it. I've learned to accept it. I live with this now every single day. I'm actually currently wearing on my Tauren my Ice Crown Citadel Death Knight tier gear, which is like a cool little thing. It looks all right. The proportions are fine. The shape is good, and it fits the rest of my gear pretty well. So I'm happy. I'm content. I'm not complaining.
Florian, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Nothing really. I just don't have that much of an opinion of transmog. It just kind of is what it is.
Improvements to the transmog system, you think that would make transmog a lot easier and might get you more into it?
Yeah, well, the main thing they could do is to make, instead of having to get every drop that you have and run back to the transmogrifier and get it transmogrified, it would be better if you could have 2 separate sets of slots for your character's gear. For example, 2 head slots, 2 foot slots, 2 chest slots, and 1 slot would be the actual item you have, like in terms of stats, and the other one would be just an appearance slot. So you could slap an item in there, and no matter what you equipped for stats, you would always have the exact same appearance. So even if you had a new helm that dropped in the raid, you could equip that and still look the same, instead of having to run back and forth all the time and spend a whole bunch of gold. And other MMOs have done this, and I really don't understand why WoW, which usually Blizzard's really great about adapting features from other MMOs. But in this particular case with Transmog, I don't know why they dropped the ball so badly.
Well, the only thing I can think of is that it wouldn't really make sense from a lore perspective. I mean, if you imagine yourself as Mr. Death Knight running around in a high mall, you pick up your sword and you, as it stands now, you take it back to the ethereal guy with the magic electricity beam, and you say, I want it to look like this, and he uses his magical electricity beam to change the appearance of the sword you just got that retains its stats and magical qualities and damage and everything. But if you had an appearance slot and you always walked around with the same sword and the same helm, the same gloves, and Mr. Death Knight went to High Mall and picked up a new sword that was better than the sword he uses and is always used, it doesn't make lore sense for you to be able to equip that sword and have it be an improvement, but you would, as far as canon goes, never have picked it up at all.
Suspension of disbelief.
Yeah,
that's kind of a gray area, because gear is always something that I feel just doesn't fit into canon at all.
I agree.
Because it just doesn't make sense for you to just like find a pair of pants that like gives you more strength than the pants you're wearing now.
Exactly.
It's totally ridiculous and entirely just a game function. And in the case of specifically a Death Knight, there are already lore problems with the fact that they use weapons that aren't rune blades, which already doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, that's what they have to go to Rune Forge. They forge runes into the blades, I imagine.
And lore-wise, they would only use their rune blade and never use anything else.
Exactly. That's my main problem with it. And if I could just have a transmog system where my Death Knight is always visually using his rune blade, that would make a lot more sense, at least for me as a role player.
Incidentally, I always transmog my Death Knight's weapon to be his rune blade.
Actually, I recently dropped out of my salvage yard the 2-handed Death Knight rune blade. It looks like a rune blade. It's got a skull on the bottom. It looks badass.
Oh, the boosted gear one?
Exactly, yeah.
Jealous.
It looks sweet. It's got like the pommel has a skull, like a goat skull or something like that, with horns going through it, and there are like these black roses embedded in the gaps of the pommel. It's really awesome looking. It's kind of macabre and interesting. So I'd recommend checking that out, and definitely keep on going for it. I think the salvage yard drops a one-handed DK weapon and also a two-handed DK weapon. So if you're Frost, you could go that route. But I think the two-handed one looks really awesome.
Oh, that's like another good thing to add. You only ever have to get a weapon once. So, like, if you want to transmog both of your swords to look like something, you only have to get the sword once. You don't have to get it twice. So that's very nice. Because I would not want to have to farm the same sword twice so I could transmog both my weapons.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the other thing that Florian was talking about, he would like the ability to transmog a slot instead of a piece of armor. The other thing that I would like to see is that taking from Diablo is a transmog bank. And what this means is that once you have held an item, you forever retain knowledge of its appearance. You don't actually have to hold the item anymore. It's just like in a menu. So you don't have to, like, we wouldn't need void storage for all of our transmog gear. Because,
what on earth will we use void storage for?
Well, I would argue that already I don't really know what to do with my bank space anyway. Because a lot of my bank space is, my bank's almost all my tunes between, like, the reagent bank and, like, just managing what I keep on me. Like, between the reagent bank and the toy box, I don't really have that much stuff in my bank anymore, and my void storage is plenty full with transmog gear, but bag space and bank space and stuff is quickly becoming less of a problem for me, just altogether. But I still
say
would
that-
like to see this this Transmog bank, this Transmog interface go through, mainly because there are some things that are very, very hard to find and hard to get. And for instance, like I am farming the Warglaives of Azeroth on my rogue, and I've had the Bulwark drop, the cool spiky shield, and I would like to use that on my Paladin, but I have to go get it on my Paladin. Whereas if I've just had it on my rogue, I would have it available on my Paladin. And I would like it to function that way, because there are some things that are so rare that there have been people farming it for so long and they still haven't got it. Apocalypse is another good example. Sulfurous from Ragnaros and Firelands.
Right.
There's just a few rare drops from bosses and dungeons and stuff that are bind on pickup, and it would be nice to not have to really be sad when I get them on the wrong character, because there's something else that I want on that character that is a different armor type or what have you.
This also helps with people who would be accidentally selling things that they don't want to, that they would have kept otherwise for Transmog. For example, I recently got the tier, I think it was called at the time, the tier 10.5 set, which is the highest level of the ICC gear that you can get for Death Knights.
Mhm.
And there are a few items that are not officially part of the tier set, but that are visually designed to go with it. For example, bracers and boots and all that you can find in ICC. But I didn't know what those items were or what their names were, and accidentally ended up selling the boots that visually go with the 10.5 set, and I ended up having to use the item restoration service to get those back. It would have been nice to just be able to it drops, and then I have the appearance, and then it's good to go. I don't have to worry about accidentally selling or losing the gear.
Right. And that's why and Diablo works this way. If you've ever held it, you can transmog it. And I really, really hope that at some point in time, Warcraft follows this model, this idea. But we'll see. I can hope, but we'll see. Any other comments or anything like that you'd like to put onto Transmog, guys?
No, basically not. I guess the only thing that we hadn't mentioned is challenge modes of this expansion. Really, really sweet, gigantic weapons. Watch out if you're a human female, because that might not fit on your screen.
It doesn't. None of them do.
And then, if there's anybody who's listening and they've browsed the Transmog vendor, or the reward vendor for the challenge modes in this expansion, and they say, wow, I'm not really a high caliber player, but I really like these weapons. What do you think? Is there any advice we can give them for getting into a challenge mode group? Do any of us have experienced challenge modes?
I have done them, and not the ones for Warlords. I will wait quite some time before I stoop to doing that again. The only thing I can really say on it is that it's not as hard as you probably think it is. It just takes patience and focus, and should just keep trying, and it's easier with friends that you can talk to on Skype because you're able to coordinate better. But really, just make sure you have your stuff in gear. Go look at some guides online, watch videos. People have already lined out everything you need to do and exactly how you need to do it. And just, go get your invisibility potions and make sure everything is lined up the way you need it to be, and then just go do it.
Flasks as well. Yeah, right. Just be prepared. Be prepared with the materials you need. Be prepared if there are any suggestions about how to itemize yourself. There are separate pieces of gear you can get that would give you an advantage. Certain trinkets that might not be intuitive, then the guides will tell you, specific to your class and spec. Yeah, try to do voice chat. It's the best way to do it. Friends is ideal. If not, usually looking for a group finder. And I would recommend just trying to set aside some time where you could wipe over and over and over again and get bronze medals in as many dungeons as you can at a minimum. If you can't get gold, it's no big deal. Groups are going to be a lot more likely to involve you and bring you in and invite you if you already have bronze experience. So don't discount bronze experience to begin with.
And also on that same note, gold does require you to be pretty efficient. The difference between gold and silver is so substantial that it is almost hilarious. Like, you get like an extra like 10 minutes to complete silver. Silver is like you should be able to get bronze by just going through it as slow as you need to. And as soon as you have the slightest grasp of it, you should be able to get silver with making mistakes or even dying. And then gold is really where you just really need to hunker down and make sure that you really, really get there.
Right.
All in all, though, still not that difficult.
Most of all, groups that run gold are going to want to know that you have experience fighting the bosses on at least bronze, at least challenge mode, because the abilities are different. Some of the mechanics can be hard to explain. If you've seen it once, then it makes your success rate a lot better than if it's some newbie.
All right. I don't think we have anything else to add on to that. Do you?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay, I'm not going to play the bumper for the mailbag. We still do not have any questions for the mailbag. If you would like to send us any questions, comments, feedback, anything like that, please send it in. The email is thecastbar@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @castbarpodcast, and you can call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278. Just call. Any question is acceptable. If you have lots of expletives, I might not be able to air it. If you email us and you put on lots of expletives, I can at least filter those out. So any and all questions, regardless, just send them in. We enjoy feedback. We enjoy questions. We really just enjoy getting involved with the viewers. It's nice. It's fun. So we're going to skip the mailbag for now because we don't have anything in it, and we're going to go straight into the review. Welcome to the review segment. We will review something every week, whether it needs to be or not, and it can be, just like a closer look, really anything. We've done quite a few of the new 5-man dungeons for Warlords of Draenor in prior episodes. This is going to be our first raid, and that is going to be Firelands. It's the first raid we have reviewed. We also are happy to review things like specs, or quest lines, or battlegrounds. There's so much in this game that is just so wonderful, and we just wanted to take a little time to give you our opinion on it and see if it may be something you want to go do or be interested in. And please feel free to send us in your feedback on these things as well. I mean, if we give something an A and you really think we're wrong for reasons X, Y, or Z, I would love to hear your feedback as to why you may or may not like whatever it is that we're reviewing at that particular point in time. So we have 3 different sections of the review. We give things letter grades with A's, A, B, C, D, E, not E, A, B, C, D, F, plus or minuses if necessary, based on what we feel is what we need, and then average grade at the end, and it's separated into 3 sections, which is ambience, gameplay, and lore. We'll start with ambience, which is everything that is involved with your senses. What you hear, what you see, intensity, visual effects, music. Florian, go ahead and take us into ambience for Firelands.
Sure thing. The first thing that strikes me about Firelands, and this hit me the very first time I walked into the raid, is just how huge and open everything is. It's not a dungeon or a cave or a building like most of your raids are. They're lands. They're the Firelands. And it's got this nice open layout where you can just take the bosses at your leisure in whatever order you want to do. And that's really nice. It makes it feel really open, and you feel like you have choices. And I like that. You've got a lot of black and red going on. There's not a lot of diversity in the color palette, and I really don't know how to feel about that. They do keep a very consistent theme, though, so I'll give them some points for that. All of the bosses look cool, have good models. I really don't have any complaints about it visually, honestly. It looks pretty good in general. The only thing that I think bothers me a little is the way Ragnaros's legs look, or just Ragnaros with legs at all. It just seems bizarre to me.
I definitely think they just tried to adapt the model to have legs.
Yeah, they seem more slapped on, like they're just like an attachment he can put on when he wants to, if he needs to walk around. But yeah, in general, it just looks really good. It's just, I would prefer it to be a little more colorful, but I can see what they were going for, and I guess it works that way.
We can see why it might not be so colorful.
Well, I mean, like, flames come in all kinds of different colors. It doesn't have to be all red and orange.
I suppose. I think it would be weird, though, if there were, like, blue fires in this Firelands, though, because that kind of screams like Icecrown Citadel to me. With the Scourge flame and stuff.
I can see where you're going there, but, it would have been nice to have just, like, a little corner tucked away. Maybe one specific boss has, like, a different color palette to just kind of break things up. I think that would be more visually interesting.
Sure, it does start to wear on you. The thing that I like, though, about their palette that they used is they presented it in a way, like it's laid out in a way that it doesn't repeat, at least not that I'm able to see very well. Like the molten ground and stuff like that is done much more, not proficiently, I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for. They've done a much better job on it than, like, most of the snow textures for the longest time. Snow specifically repeats so quickly, and it just looks so, well, really like you just took like something out of Microsoft Paint and just started,
copy pasting.
Yeah, exactly. So I like
that. A little lasso.
Yeah, I'm glad that didn't happen in Firelands. That I didn't have that feeling like everything was just cookie cuttered out. I do really agree with what you're saying, though, because it does kind of wear on you just a little bit. But at the same time, I mean, it is the Firelands. Don't really know what else they could really do for it, besides just have lots of flame and molten and obsidian-looking colors everywhere. The bosses, at least, none of the bosses look bad. They all look great. From my standpoint, at least, I felt that all the bosses had very, very strong models on them, and very unique models too. I don't really feel like any of them were really copy-pasted material that like we'd seen priorly, and I'd hope not, since Firelands really did actually cost us a raid. For those of you that don't know, there was supposed to be a raid that accompanied Firelands, and that was supposed to be the what was it called?
Watery Kingdom.
The Watery Kingdom, or something like that. There was supposed to be another raid released alongside it that had roughly the same raid gear.
The Abyssal Maw.
Thank you. The Abyssal Maw, that's correct. And it was going to be the counterpart, and it was going to be a water dungeon. But it got scrapped because reasons. We can talk about that some other time. So the aesthetics are all really strong. The music, I am really stickling on music, it seems, because I feel like the music should have changed more between the boss fights, whereas it doesn't. Because when you go into Firelands, you already have this really, you get, like Florian said, it's this big, expansive, flaming field, and you get this big, epic feeling, but there's not really anywhere to go from there after you're already at the battle charge music. What did you think, Evan?
Well, the music specifically, yeah, it's a little bit one-dimensional, but that's really my only critique. Visually, this place is pretty well done, I think. I share concerns about the kind of repetitiveness. You don't really get a break from the Fire and Brimstone necessarily, but I think that it's really fitting. I think all the bosses are great. The models all the bosses kind of resemble a model, like, for example, Shanux is just like Majordomo Executus and all of his little lizard people, and the guy from Blackrock Depths, but they changed his model to make him look higher quality, a lot more polygons and everything, and kind of got some personality. I mean, he's got his little eye patch there, and his horns a little bit curvier and more textured and everything. I think it looks cool.
And you scalp off his face and wear it.
Yeah, for some reason.
I'll talk about that in a minute.
And then Lord Rylith, the magma giant or whatever, it's just like the magma giants and molten giants and molten core, except more personality, a few bells and whistles on them, just to make them look different, which I think a little bit of detail goes a long way. the inside of the temple, where Majordomo Staghelm is guarding. I think the temple has really cool motifs, lots of cool curves and angles. I like the color palette. I like the runes written on everything. I think it's really fitting. I think when you have the context of the entire expansion with the Twilight Hammer and everything, they're kind of borrowing the motifs from these elemental plane gods and, worship then, of course, and adapting those kind of same angles and architectural features and things in their own tents and settlements and all that. I think seeing them in their original glory here, I think Blizzard put a lot of thought into this. This is the original. This is what all the mockeries are trying to mock, itself. And I think it does justice. It does a great amount of justice.
I have a random question for you guys. So you were talking about the temple for Firelands, which I agree with everything you said. It is great, and this has nothing to do with what it looks like, purely my own curiosity. The design for the temple door, the layout is reused a lot through all of Warcraft, and that's you walk in one door, and then there's two hallways that go around a central block thing, and then there's another door behind that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Kind of like in Silvermoon, used a whole lot.
Yeah, it's used in a lot of places. Is that a legitimate architecture design? Does that have some sort of real world combat benefit that I don't know about?
I think it is a combat defensive fortress thing. Florian, do you know anything more specific?
I guess maybe it could have been in medieval times. As far as I can tell, there's no real benefit to it. It's just making you walk further to get into the building.
I've thought the same thing about the Orgrimmar entrance. It's always been the same I think it's always been the same. It's hard for me to remember how Orgrimmar used to be before the changes. But you go in, and then you have to fork right, and then you fork left, and then it kind of keeps you from marching in a straight line if you're besieging the city itself.
And maybe that's what it is. You can't drive anything in. You wouldn't be able to drive a catapult into the... Well, I don't know why you'd be driving a catapult into the city, but maybe that's what it is that you can't take big things through, truly large objects, but this isn't something that I've looked into. It's just something that I noticed, because it does that same thing of you have to walk in the door and then walk around this barrier thing, and then you can actually go inside.
I think it breaks line of sight, so if you have a long line of troops, by the time the first people are already through, the people behind them wouldn't know what to expect still,
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've spent quite a bit of time in Europe, and I've been to a bunch of castles there, and I've never seen that sort of donut entrance thing they have going on all the time in WoW. So I think if it had tactical functionality, I would have seen it there probably.
Right, and even Stormwind does it on a much larger scale, obviously, but Stormwind does it too. And I'm just why do you do this? I do not understand. There has to be something to do with this that I am not comprehending.
Okay, well then think about it this way. It's a game, and they're designing the experience for the players itself. I've done a lot of reading about landscape architecture, and when you're designing a garden in the back of somebody's yard, you want to keep the surprises around corners. You want to use line of sight to create tension and interest. So when you create this line of sight barrier, walking into Orgrimmar, walking into this Firelands temple, walking into Silvermoon, you don't want people to be able to see the inside of the city in all of its splendor until you're right there in the smack dab in the middle, and it takes up your entire field of view all at once. They don't want you to be able to see it ahead of time far off in the distance. They want you to see nothing, and then all of a sudden everything.
So it's essentially like architectural gift wrapping.
Exactly.
I don't like it, but just random little mini tangent there. Evan, though, ambience grade.
B+.
What is keeping it from an A? I have to ask.
Just a little bit of the monotony. I like Mount Highjaw in the bottom right kind of section where all of this kind of elemental lord stuff is taking place. You have the parts where it's all lava-y around the entrance to the Firelands, and then you have some of the southeastern part where it's kind of blasted but kind of gray. And I'd like a little bit of blasted gray just to break the tension, just a little bit of shade. I felt like dying from exposure the entire time I was in there. There's nothing but the fiery ash. And I know that's a kind of a design choice, but I would have liked a little bit more variation. There's room for improvement in that respect, I think.
Sure, that seems very fair. Florian, game. Wow, I really want you guys to grade gameplay right now. Florian, game. Wow, ambience grade.
My ambience grade is also going to be B+, mostly because I feel they could have broken up the monotony a little bit better with the same color palettes all the time. Basically, I feel about it very much like Evan did. Like, they did a good job in general. It was just a little too much of the same stuff.
My grade is actually going to be an A+. I do not see many things that look better than Firelands. And the reason that I say this, because I do agree with your guys' it does wear a little old, though. But look at what Firelands is. And think what this place would actually look like if it were in the real world. It would look a lot like this. I mean, we've seen places where volcanoes have, blown, and it does look like nothing but fire and rock. There isn't anything interesting there unless there happened to be an iron deposit or something. But this is an entire dimension that is formed out of nothing but flame, essentially. And it's so well done because even though the appearance does seem monotonous, it's very appropriate and it doesn't get repetitive, which is what really gives it bonus points from me because I really do not like when things start to look like a pattern. I mean, and all of the different sections are very well done. Because like Bethelak, the spider, her area is very, very unique with the pillars and the orange webs and all of that, and Rylus' little cliff, and there's so much uniqueness happening everywhere between all the different zones, and then you have the open, I guess we'll call it a field in the center there, and everything to me looks so fantastic, and I do not see much room for improvement, and so it renders an A+ from me.
Okay.
Next, we go into gameplay. Gameplay is everything from boss mechanics. For this one, I'm also going to include soloing it, because soloing things from like Wrath of the Lich King and earlier, not that big a deal. Right now, there is still some challenge to be found in soloing things for Cataclysm content. This will also include loot. This is basically all of the actual stuff that affects the game. So, all the numbers, essentially. So we will kick it off with Evan.
Let's see, gameplay. I think the bosses all have pretty cool mechanics. Honestly, they're all quite different from one another, especially Ali's Razor. This is going to be one of the ones where you lose subscribers pronouncing it wrong.
You are correct.
The bird, the firebird, flying around.
I think says it. What does he say? I think it's Elisrazor. I think
Elisrazor. Yeah,
I think it's Alice, not Alice Razor. Elisrazor. So anyway, not important.
Yeah, I like the
save that gripe for later.
Yeah, and then like the big magma giant killing his legs first, and then I think I need a Major Domo. I think it's a pretty complicated fight, a couple different phases and everything, and I think it's pretty effective in trying to create a little bit of a technical barrier between for success. It's not necessarily just patchwork fight. I mean, you have to learn the fight, you have to get them down, and all that stuff. I like the 2-layer arena for the spider as well. I think that was pretty cool, splitting up your group and everything. And then the Ragnaros fight afterwards, I thought was a good homage to Ragnaros in general at the beginning. I think it introduced some pretty cool mechanics, and although I've never done it at difficulty, I think it would have been a pretty exciting fight to try to work out with the multiple phases and all that, and then having him finally jump out of the actual lava pit. That must have been a really cool moment for people who had the pleasure of doing that for the first time when it was relevant.
Well, that actually only happens on Heroic. If you're not on Heroic, if you're on Normal, he just goes down into his little fire pool.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah. So it's kind of like the Garrosh fight where you get the 4th phase, or Imperator Margok now, where on Mythic Cho'Gall shows up.
Yes, yes. I'm looking forward to trying that out, and it's kind of tough when you have the extra fight phases kind of locked away behind the really tough parts of the really tough difficulties, but it's something to aspire to, definitely, and something you can always enjoy if you go back after the content has passed. I like Balrog, and how some of his mechanics really required some pretty serious raid coordination. Even as recently as last expansion, that fight was not trivial for people to go through for transmog runs or whatever. So overall, I think each boss has a pretty cool hook, and I like those fights. Even nowadays at level 100, you still have to kind of do the mechanics itself, and it breaks up a little bit of the monotony if you are doing a whole lot of old world dungeon runs and raid runs. This place is still kind of engaging and fun, I think, and that's my personal opinion.
Well, and on 25-man heroic, it can pose a very large barrier to people who, if you're sitting at like item level like 660, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But if you're in heroic dungeon gear, this can still be quite troublesome depending on the boss. Balrog is the Doomguard looking guy, right?
The one with the big wings.
Yeah, he, even if you're in 660 plus gear, he has a couple abilities that will devastate you. He has I don't know what it's called right off the bat, but he buffs his swords, and one attack does one thing and the other attack hurts really bad. Even if you are like tanky blood DK, it still hits you really hard. And like the actual goal with him for soloing is to kill him before he does that.
Oh wow. Deal shadow damage equal to 90% of the target's maximum health.
Yep.
that doesn't, I don't care who you are, that's gonna hurt.
Percentage damage is rude. Yeah, percentage damage, so rude. The bosses though, like, it's hard for me to complain that Firelands is killed Abyssal Maw, because they really did put so much effort into Fireland. That being said, though, an entire raid tier consisting of 7 bosses is too small for anybody, because that is way too few bosses for an entire raid tier. But all the encounters are really good encounters. They're a lot of fun, even now to solo. I mean, like, Elisrazor, you grab the feathers off the ground and get to fly up in the air and chase her around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was, one, incredibly difficult to do depending on your class back when it was current content, but it's also a lot of fun now. It's just really cool. That's a neat mechanic. And, like, with, what is the giant rock dude's name up on the hill?
What is Lord it? Something or another.
Lord Rylith.
Rylith, that's it. His little making him walk one way or the other, it seems gimmicky at first, but it's still fun, especially because all the environment affects him, so you want to make him run over the mines and stuff like this. Like, These are very fun, interesting mechanics that aren't just, simple. Like, compared even to, like, the Kargath fight where you want to make him run into the fire, that is not as interesting to me as some of the stuff that this raid presented. Where are you sitting at on gameplay, Florian?
Well, I'm going to have to start by saying that my opinion is not going to be terribly informed, because I did not get to run this back when it was current content. I tried, but every pug I was in fell apart. So this is actually my first time running it this past week. I can't say much about the gameplay, because the majority of the bosses I just kind of wandered in and beat them to death in literally no time. What I can say, however, is that I really liked Lord Rylith in particular. The whole mechanic of, because I've always thought it was funny with raid bosses that we really have just like 20, 25 people running up to this huge thing and basically just beating its feet. And Lord Rylith is basically the ultimate expression of that same concept, because you are literally just attacking his feet, both mechanically and in lore. I thought that was pretty hilarious, and it was a fun fight, and I was quite fond of it. I also liked Elisrazor, who had some really cool mechanics. The feathers were awesome, and I liked the whole aerial dimension to that fight. Like you said, in general, like, everything is really strong here. And it should be, considering we had to give up an entire raid to get this.
And it makes me sad to think, though, that in order to get this quality of content, we do have to give up so much and get what really is so little. It's 7 bosses. Like, even for people that might have trouble with progression, it's not very much. I mean, a lot of groups are progressing very, very far into the 8 bosses of Highmall because there's only 8. 7. How many are there? 7? 7.
7.
Yeah.
7.
I mean, so this is a very similar situation. But as a raid tier, we also have, which is going to be right on the same, it's like what, 5-10 item levels higher? So on the same gear level is going to be Blackrock Foundry, which is 12 more bosses, 11 more bosses. So there's significantly more there. Whereas Firelands was by itself, and there's just not much content there. Another thing I would like to touch on, though, is that I believe Firelands is the first one to introduce this concept of global boss loot, and there were epic items that were able to be dropped from any of the bosses. And, well, I think it was any of them. I'm pretty sure. Like, a Zoid's Firelit Greatsword it's a low drop chance. It's like 0.05. But it had a chance to be bonus loot, extra loot that dropped from any of the bosses. And I hadn't seen that before, and that was a very neat idea to me. And it was very cool, because, I mean, sometimes, your raid group down to boss, and oh, cool, there's a bonus sword. There was also, like, a staff and something else. There's only 2 or 3 items that fell onto that global table, but it was still very neat. I liked it. What is your guys' opinion on global boss loot items?
Well, I think it was really good, especially going after certain things for Transmog. If you miss it on the one boss, you have a chance to get on the other boss. It does, however, start to get a little bit repetitive, especially in certain random number situations where you get the same item dropping over and over and over again. It's great if you have the 4 warlocks that all need the blade or whatever. It's not great if you have 0 warlocks and nobody needs a blade, and you really wish you would have dropped something specific from that boss's loot table. So, overall, I'm not sure if it's a good system. I don't think they've done anything like that in Highmall, except for just the BOEs off trash. And I'm not entirely sure I'm aching for them to return to something like that.
Fair enough. So, Florian, gameplay grade.
Gameplay grade, I can't say that much about it, simply because I didn't get to experience most of the phases and mechanics, but from what I did see, it looked really like it was really good. So I'm going to say B+.
And Evan, how about yourself?
I'm going to say B as well. Just regular old B, though. Just because I don't want to say is fantastic when I wasn't able to do it, so I'm going to put my personal reservation, say B, just because it's safe. And if I were able to try it out at level in 10 or 12 years when they finally make us able to do these old raids at a kind of respectable difficulty, I don't want to have to go back and say, oh, I gave that an A, that didn't deserve an A. So I'll just give it a B for now and sit on that.
Okay. I'm going to give it an A-, and the minus is really due in part to gameplay is not on a individual basis. This is the entire raid, and the entire raid is too short. It's just way too short for it to really get any type, like, it really hurts it that it is so short of a raid. And while some of the mechanics are very fun, they're also quite gimmicky in some ways, which gimmicky isn't always bad, but it can really hurt the quality of what you're doing, because sometimes gimmicky mechanics don't always function the way that they were originally designed to. The one speaking out the loudest is Lord Rylith, and trying to make him turn. Sometimes literally he wouldn't turn. Like, there's a little bar that says which way he should turn, and he just wouldn't turn sometimes because it was just a little bit too gimmicky of a mechanic. But that being said, though, the fights and everything are great. The loot is really strong, and it's just the gameplay on it's very, very good. But they just has a couple of very small things that really keep it from truly shining as the flames should. So that brings us into lore. If you don't really care for lore, I'm sorry. It is part of the game, and it is important in all things. And it does influence what may or may not constitute a good dungeon. I don't think Icecrown Citadel would have been as renowned to people if it didn't have as strong as lore ties as it did with Arthas and what have you. I'll go ahead and take the first steps into lore. I included in my final lore grade the patch before Firelands went live, and that's all the Molten Front lore. When the Firelands portal was opening and they were actually, the elementals were pouring into Hyjal and stuff like that. Because that really is part of the lore of the raid. I mean, otherwise we're just kind of flying into this temple and finding a bunch of fire things in there and deciding that they're bad. Which I guess we do sometimes, but I'm still including them. Which they were daily, so they were monotonous, but the story behind them was quite good because we really did have to create this foothold, kind of like we're doing in Warlords. Man, Blizzard, come on, stop with the repetition of what we do. To really actually get a grasp on what was happening in the Firelands and to really just push in there so that we can take down Ragnaros, who was working with Deathwing at the time. Which is also a very interesting question because, like, Deathwing wanted to destroy everything, and it makes me curious as to why Ragnaros would truly agree to work with him. I know Ragnaros is evil and all, but still, I mean, if this dude's goal is literally just destroy everything.
Well, wasn't also Ragnaros' goal?
Maybe?
It's a purge the whole world with flame.
But I think he wanted to take it over with flame, like turn Azeroth into the new Firelands, whereas Deathwing literally just wants to blow it up. Like, purge all life. We see what he wanted in Endtime, where everything is dead.
Well, you didn't necessarily see any humanoid slaves going around with a pickaxe in Firelands. It was pretty much just elemental dudes and lizards and spiders. So I think if Deathwing purged all of Azeroth, then Ragnaros would probably be perfectly content to fill it full of lizard men and spiders and elementals.
Fair enough. And for lore, we are going to take the heroic result as the lore, and that is where when you're almost on normal mode, if you're almost about to kill Ragnaros, he dips back into the little fire pool and says, "Too soon. You've come too soon." On heroic, though, when he goes to do that, Malfurion, Cenarius, and some Tauren dude whose name completely escapes me, come and use a whole bunch of druid magic and seal up his holes and keep him from actually leaving.
Was that Hamul Rune Totem?
Yes, that is his name. Thank you.
Used to be a Tauren role player.
So, I mean, the true end result of Firelands is that we kill Ragnaros. The question that I pose to you guys, because the Elemental Lords are ancient beings, and at this point, one is still being held as a Kraken's teddy bear, and that's Azumat, and that's the Elemental Lord of Water. The Elemental Freak of Earth is whatever fat elemental's name is.
Wait, that's not Therazane, is it?
Yeah, Therazane, the fat elemental.
I thought it was a chick. She's beautiful.
Yeah, the fat elemental. That's the only thing I can ever remember for Therazane is that she is the fat elemental of Earth.
She's gorgeous.
You need help. And then, of course, during Cataclysm, we took down the Elemental Lord of Air, which is Alakir. Are they actually dead? Like, are we actually able to kill them? Really? Like, they are the essence of the elements.
No, I'm going to try to... Oh, no, Florian, please.
Well, this is something that I've been wondering for a while myself. Simply because, these elemental lords, they're in charge of that entire the elemental plane.
Right.
And I have to wonder, like, if one of these guys does get killed theoretically, what happens then? Like, does somebody else get in charge? Do we get, like, Ragnaros Jr. or something like that running things? Or it's Blizzard has never really addressed anything to do with what happens when an elemental lord dies, or what the repercussions would be, which I would assume there would be some repercussions for Azeroth.
Think about the Throne of the Elements in Nagrand, in TBC and also in the Draenor right now. It's part of the quest line where the Earth guy is possessed or whatever by Cho'Gall, and he's kind of an elemental lord. What do they call him? An aspect. And he's down there hanging out in Oshugun with a bunch of Pale Orcs, and you actually end up having to go and kill him and take his little crystal heart or whatever. And then they say afterwards that one of the other elementals will kind of take his place eventually. So I think the same thing might be happening with Ragnaros afterwards. Ragnaros isn't necessarily an entity so much as an idea, and one of those lizard people will eventually kind of become Ragnaros, I feel, by ascending into this kind of power vacuum.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Florian?
Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, that's the logical way for it to work out. I just wasn't sure whether or not that's the way it would play out, since we know very little about how the elemental plane works in general.
I get and the other question is, on lore, is like, if these guys control the elemental plane of their element, how does that work with shamans? I mean, the shamans call on the elements. Is there, like, a spirit of the elements that we never actually really get to see or anything like that answers differently? Or how does that work when there's an elemental lord which essentially controls the element of fire? I mean, am I technically asking Ragnaros, please give me some fire right now when my shaman casts Lava Burst?
Oh, hell yeah. He wants to burn all life. You got something alive you want to burn? He's all for it.
Is that how it works?
That seems like the most reasonable explanation I've heard.
It's either that or your shaman spells are drawing on the energy that you captured into your totems themselves, because I think that originally you were doing totem quest, you were taking a kind of rogue fire spirit and encasing it in a block of wood. Maybe he is the source for your lava burst. I'm not positive.
That sounds much more accurate.
Let's say that.
And we know that the elements work differently in different places, because I don't think Ragnaros has any control over the elements that are in Draenor. Because, it's almost an entirely different realm.
Well, the elemental plane itself is an entirely different realm. But you'd think there's one elemental plane per universe or per world?
Maybe? I don't know.
Probably one per planet. That's what it looks like, since Draenor has separate elements.
Only one per planet.
We got a lot of Ragnaroses to kill, guys. If they're all as evil as him, we got our work cut out for us for a very long time. Back onto the actual raid, though. I have always had this problem, really, with there being raid bosses that are really just there. I like Lord Rylith. His lore is pretty well established. I am ancient fire golem that slept for 5,000 years. Why would you poke me? I'm angry, brah.
He's angry.
He really is just like a big molten bear, and we poked him, and now he's mad. But Bethelak, giant fire spider, why? Why does it have to be spiders? Luckily, though, they did establish a lot of the other ones. I do feel like Shanox is a little bit of a outstretch, though.
What are you talking about? You mean it's a bit of a stretch?
Yeah, what is he? Why is he important? Why is he special?
I'm not entirely sure. Maybe he was just one of the most baddest-ass lizard men in the whole squad.
Can't compete.
Lizard squad.
It's because he has a bow and arrow, and none of the rest of them do.
According to the lore, he is the chief hunter and kennel master of Ragnaros' hellhounds. So that's what he is. I guess he hunts for Ragnaros. Whatever that would entail.
Where does he hunt these things at? Firelands is very small. And
no. The raid itself takes place on a block of rock in the middle of oceans of magma, so maybe there are other blocks of rock where he goes and hunts.
Really? Because when I look at Are we pretty high up then? Because when I look off the side, all I see is this orangish pinkish colored air.
I'm not positive. I've never gone off to the side of the whole crane and tried to jump off.
I do enjoy, though, on both a gameplay and a lore perspective, the idea that when we kill Shaynox, one of the items you can drop is his face.
Yeah, what do you mean by that again?
He has an item that he drops. It's a male helm that it's his face. We cut his face off and wear it because we're creepy.
Right.
What is it called? It is called... Oh, I need to not be looking at priest stuff.
Scalp of the Bandit Prince?
Yeah, Scalp of the Bandit Prince. It's his head. We cut off his scalp and put it on our face and wear it because it has magic powers.
Hold on, I'll be the judge of that. Oh, wow, yeah, that reminds me a whole lot of the Laughing Skull mask. It's basically a face. It's got the horns and everything. It's even got his ears.
It's got his eye patch.
It's got his eye patch. That's silly as hell.
Yeah, we take his face.
Well, let me see what that looks like on a blood elf. Oh, good God.
And I'm not certain, but wait, what helm is that? That is a cool looking helm. Anyway,
Goodness gracious. All right, thoughts, Florian. Should we be able to carve off all of the boss's faces and wear them as helmets?
Why can't I wear Garrosh's face?
I think you should carve out all of their faces and wear them all at once on top of each other, and you become invincible.
I want to wear, like, meaty orc face. Is this a way that I can sneak into other places? I just carve up one of your friends, Evan, and just stick his Tauren head over mine, and I can just walk into Thunderbluff?
Please
Yeah,
don't.
I think it'll be.
Please don't.
Honestly, back in the very first MMO I ever played was Ultima Online, and they introduced a content patch where orcs had a chance of dropping a green orcish kin mask, where if you put on the orc mask, you lose a bunch of karma, and orcs wouldn't attack you. I never really thought about how strange it was that orcs were carrying orc masks in their inventory.
They're not. Just
Yeah,
carving
exactly.
off their face. One other question I have, which is for a pseudo lore thing. Besides that, is Ragnaros dead and all this kind of different stuff. One of the items Ragnaros can drop is Sulphurus, the Extinguished Hand, which is his hammer. Is this technically the same thing as the legendary we craft in vanilla?
I don't think so, because the one in vanilla isn't the original weapon. It's just a recreation of that weapon made
Whereas
with
this
the
one
eye of
is
Sulphurus.
the original weapon.
It's the original weapon, but I guess it's been extinguished, so it's not as strong, and that's why it's not a legendary, maybe? At least that's the best explanation I can think of.
Fair enough. Okay, so did you... we kind of just rambled on lore in different directions and places. Did you guys have anything that you wanted to add into lore?
No, did you want to say anything about the Molten Front or the quest line that was leading up to it?
Just that it was a good introduction to the raid. We very rarely get strong introductions to raids. Like, I mean,
Right.
Even Heimal has a very, like... We really don't get much of anything I would call an introduction into that raid. So, I mean, it was just nice to actually have a real build-up and lead-up into it.
All right. I only have one question. Lore-wise, we fight Staghelm, which is Fandral Staghelm, is that right?
Correct.
And he was a pretty major character in the Darnassus lore and everything, and they've kind of just thrown him away now. He was a bad guy, and we've killed him, and he's gone now, I imagine, right?
Right.
He wasn't, like, redeemed or anything afterwards. Or we
No,
didn't
he's
beat
very,
the fire
very
out
dead.
of him.
Yeah, he's very dead.
How many times in WoW's history have they taken a pretty significant character and kind of thrown him away and made him into a raid boss, and now he's dead? What comes to mind originally is, well, of course, Garrosh kind of had a pretty long build-up and everything. Also, Nazgrim. Also, recently, we've lost Admiral Taylor. as well. I guess since we lost Nazgrim, you guys losing Taylor kind of just evens it out because they served similar roles in Mr. Pandaria and Jade Force especially.
Yep.
Do you think
Blizzard really loves to do this, and I hope they do it with Thrall. Okay, I don't hate Thrall that much. He just gets the spotlight way too much. But no, Blizzard loves doing this. I mean, they've been doing this since like they didn't really do it. I guess they even almost did it a little bit in vanilla with Kel'Thuzad and the original Naxxramas. But I mean, this is how they get people to care about a raid. I mean, really, like Imperator Margok, nobody really cares about. Blackhand, however, people do care about. But the big thing about this expansion is Grom. That's a big name. But think about all of the really big highlight raids. I mean, they do this all the time with names. Illidan, Lady Vaj, Kael'thas, I mean, all of Burning Crusade, and a ton of Wrath of the Lich King. The only real unique character, I mean, Anubarak gets killed in Trial of the Grand Crusader, and he was a huge, huge character all through Warcraft 3 once you actually get involved with the Scourge. So, I mean, they really, really love to build characters up and then kill them.
So do you think it's almost like eventually Warcraft is going to be indistinguishable? I mean, that's the wrong way to put it. In a couple of years that they keep on going at this pace, we're not going to have very many of the original characters from Warcraft 3 left, or even from early classic WoW.
That being, you say that, I do think that they will never let some characters go away. They might kill them, but we won't be the ones who kill them. Like Thrall, someone might kill Thrall, but I really, really doubt that'll ever happen. But he will never be a raid boss. Jaina, even though people, were like, oh, Jaina's going crazy, Jaina will never be a raid boss. Variant,
right.
Never going to be a raid boss. So no matter what, we're still going to have this small collective group of, it's almost like the core party, the core characters.
Yeah.
And, even though some secondary characters might get more limelight, more attention, might be more loved by fans, they're going to be the ones that unfortunately die.
Yeah, the Drain I've gotten hit pretty hard. Marad and also Velen this expansion. Spoilers.
Well, the only one that we actually lose is Marad. And he, surprisingly, actually wasn't that big a character until Warlords. Because the only time we really saw him before was in the Burning Crusade cinematic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't really a person before then.
I wasn't sure if he was involved more in Sunwell or not.
No, he wasn't.
What do you say we didn't actually lose Velen, though?
Well, because we lost Velen number 2. The Velen that sacrificed himself is the Velen that was here in Draenor. Our Velen is still... knocked stuff over on my desk. Our Velen is still back on Azeroth.
Oh, okay, well, that's good then.
So, we didn't lose Velen. I mean, it was still a big loss, and I mean, it seems like a big character's gone. Our Velen's still alive. We don't care.
Do you think we will have to kill Yrel at the end of the expansion?
That would suck so much, and I would be so upset. She's already a huge character, and I love her a lot. And I would not be surprised at all if your assumption is correct and the Burning Legion gets a hold of her and she becomes evil, and I would just be so sad. And why are you doing this to me, you horrible person?
They really introduced her at the very introductory quest, and they've built her up to this legendary character. Is she going to survive the expansion? I think it's a pretty important question to ask.
If she does survive the expansion, she won't go into the next one. She's staying here.
Oh, okay.
Whereas we will go back to Azeroth. I can say that. If she survives, she'll stay here. Just because of her character herself. She's very dedicated to her people. And even though we have Draenei, I doubt she will come with us. That being said, though, she might see, there's bigger evil in the world and my home is safe. I can leave this to people like Exarch Akama, and he can keep watch over here. This is also assuming that the whole war thing of time is a flat circle doesn't come around, and this place doesn't get blown up.
Spoilers.
We don't know what's going to happen, but that is a possibility. Florian, do you have anything you want to add to everything I just spouted out there?
A little bit. On your point earlier about the villains being major characters, I think you kind of have to have that to a certain degree, because a good villain has to be someone that the players can empathize with and that the players care about. Otherwise, they just end up being just like raid boss number 27. But who the hell is this guy? You know,
Right.
In order to have a really good, compelling, what?
Which is why Arthas was such an effective villain and such an iconic villain.
Exactly, and that's why the archetype of the hero who becomes the villain is so popular and resonates with people so strongly, is because you have to care about the villains, and that's why we use major lore characters, because we've been with these characters a long time, we've seen them a long time, and we care about them. So when they turn into villains, there's a lot of drama there. It's very interesting and it catches people's attention. Whereas characters who are purely meant to be villains, for example, Ragnaros. They're just some evil guy. Like, I really can't care about Ragnaros that much. I don't know about you guys.
Well, that being said, though, like, that is a good point. The other option, though, to make people care is Ragnaros has never been and will never be a good guy. But if he killed a good guy, if Ragnaros killed Thrall, then he immediately becomes one of the largest characters in the game. And that's another way that they can create a really big, important bad guy.
Oh, yeah, it's called the Worf effect.
The Worf effect?
You were saying Ragnaros would become the biggest character in the game if you were to kill Thrall?
Yeah. As an example. I mean, it might not work specifically that way, but that's a very good example of that. If you kill the hero, not necessarily the hero become the bad guy, but if you kill a hero, you instantly become one of the biggest and most important bad guys, and people don't care about you because you're a good guy, but because you killed the good guy.
Right. I mean, the Worf effect is a literary device where you have a new character that comes on the scene, and you're trying to explain to the viewer or whatever that this character is a super badass, super powerful guy. The only way you can demonstrate that is to have him kick the ass of somebody who is demonstrated and the player accepts that is already really powerful.
Oh, okay, sure, that makes sense.
So when you're saying you make him an important character by having him defeat one of the already established important characters, is the same kind of thing.
Right.
But I like what Florian said about having people we empathize with be more effective villains. And I'm wondering if this whole Yrel thing is kind of like practice. I mean, they're taking a nobody and making them one of the most important characters of the expansion and having their story be believable and allow us to kind of attach emotionally to her. Are we going to see more of this in the future? And have we seen any of this in the past? I mean, thinking about like Lore Master Cho, for example, somebody we have a little bit more of a connection with.
I think the only time that we might have had an opportunity for that is Terran Zhu, but he was so mean to us that we didn't care. Like, if Terran Zhu had been trying to help us the entire time, and instead of just always being such a rude expletive to us all the time, I think he could. I think that could have really emphasized the Garrosh hatred, because I mean there was a lot of people that even after everything still agreed with what Garrosh was doing. So I mean it was one of those. It was like if Terran Zhu would have been made to be like this really awesome good guy, and then during that cinematic to the Siege of Orgrimmar, Garrosh would have killed him, there would have been a lot stronger feelings had. But instead, Terran Zhu just got his butt kicked, and we were like, good for you!
Yeah.
Douche.
So maybe that wasn't a very effective demonstration of making a character kind of resonate with us emotionally, and then also like putting him in a tough position for us to have like kind of reaction to it. That wasn't so effective. I don't even think I ever saw this cinematic you're talking about where Terran Zhu gets butt kicked by Garrosh.
You didn't see the 5.4 cinematic for Siege of Orgrimmar where Garrosh dumps the heart of Yasharaj into the pool in the Vale?
No,
okay.
I never did.
Then you should go watch it then. It's pretty good. And Terran Zhu has like one of the awesome, best one-liners I've heard in the game. His retort about Garrosh and his father makes me so happy. Like, it's one of those lines that you just hear and you're just like, oh, God! That was so good! Incidentally, I actually really liked Terran Zhu as a character. I enjoyed his character a lot. But I know there's a lot of people that just saw him as being rude and that he didn't want us to be there. This lore segment has derailed terribly.
These are important questions. I mean, it was derivative from the Stag Helm question.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and try and wrap this up real quick. Florian, lore grade for Firelands.
Lore grade, I'm going to say B. I mean, it's okay, I guess. And major guy died, so I guess that's important lore. I just don't really know what's going on here too well.
All right. Evan, lore grade?
I don't want to let the grade get away with I don't want to let this raid get away with the best grade so far, just because we don't feel anything very strongly. I'm going to say C- on lore because although the Ragnos is a really important character and so is Staghelm, none of these other characters are anybody I recognize, and it's kind of just like a collection of baddies. It's like a Star Trek episode, you know.
I've not watched Star Trek, so I don't know quite what you're saying, but I get the idea.
Yeah, it's just a menagerie of badass dudes that we gotta kill for their loot and then assault Ragnos' hut or whatever. So I mean, yeah, I mean I like it when the mobs we are facing fighting are significant and have some kind of build up. So the fact that it's just kind of Shanox is just the best hunter or whatever. Okay, whatever. You know, big molten guy. Okay, big bird thing. Okay.
Well, Olis Resort had a little bit more lore behind it because you do quest a little bit with her before she succumbs to the fire druids.
Okay.
The flame.
Yeah, she does have a little bit of an RP scene there with the Major Domo. Okay, I'll bring it up to a C then. Fantastic. Thank you for pointing that out.
I'm personally going to give it an A. I think did I give this A's across the board in some way? Yeah, I did. I totally did. I apparently liked Firelands more than I realized. I'm going to give it an A. I think that some of the things that we complain about in other instances, we didn't mention in this. Because Firelands does a whole lot of wrap-up, which is very, very nice. There's not really any cliffs left after Firelands besides going and stopping Deathwing. But with a whole bunch of characters get involved in this, we get to see Cenarius, we get to see more of Malfurion, which is a really big character which doesn't do much, incidentally. He was huge in Warcraft 3, and we finally actually got to see him do a pretty significant bit in Firelands. I really liked the idea behind the Druids of the Flame. I really liked the raid lore as a whole, the build up with it with Molten Front, which I don't think you got to do Molten Front, Evan, so that might have been a little bit of why the lore hurt for you. Correct. Because a lot of the lore is stored for this raid in other places. I mean, Icecrown Citadel's lore would be terrible if it didn't have the entire expansion for Wrath of the Lich King
true.
behind it. And, you know, everything from Warcraft 3 and all of that. But, I mean, so there was a lot of build-up and that really went into the lore that is Firelands. And so the only thing the only reason it doesn't get an A+ is because there's just a couple small things that are just a little bit like, I guess you can swing that. Fine. Okay, sure. So I'll give it an A. And let's see, that brings ambience to an A, gameplay to a B+, and that puts lore at a B, so that gives this entire thing a B+ for the raid. Final score of the raid is a B+.
Wonderful.
I liked this raid way more than I thought I did.
You surely did.
I remember like a year ago, I'm running it with some of my friends of mine and talking to them on Skype and ripping this raid apart. And now that apparently I have to actually review it and grade it in more ways than prior times have called for, I apparently really like it. Because it got A's across the board for me in every way. All in all, though, B+ is still a great grade from us.
Is. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can be very, very harsh in some cases. Very, very harsh in some cases. So B+ is actually a significant grade. Do you guys have any closing thoughts for Firelands?
I think one of the reasons it was rated so highly, I think that it's a really powerful wrap-up effect and deriving kind of satisfaction. I don't feel very satisfied with High Mall specifically, but maybe by the end of the expansion, it'll be a lot more satisfying to go and finally kill the last boss, and all the build-up finally comes to a close. So you might be onto something there.
And Blackrock Foundry will probably be significantly more important to us because it does have so much more weight in it, especially with like Black Hand and the cinematic in Talador and stuff. So we'll get more meat out of Blackrock Foundry, whereas High Mall really was just like the introductory raid. Florian, any closing thoughts you'd like to add on to there?
Well, I feel the opposite of what Evan feels. I don't think anything has ended, because Blizzard has had plenty of time to present a new Fire Lord or whatever to the players. So I don't think Ragnaros is dead. I think the Firelands was merely a setback, and we'll see him again.
Incidentally, I'm just going to comment. For anyone who doesn't know, I decided that I wanted to do a Warcraft podcast, and I got onto Reddit and said, yo, who wants to do some podcasts? And Evan and Florian were the first two people to respond, and I got really lucky in that they are fantastic people. None of our views are the same, ever. Like, we have some parts where we overlap, but for the most part, we are all very sitting in different corners on almost everything. We can agree, and we could agree to disagree, but I feel as though we get an air high five for not sucking, considering we're random people from random places that all met on Reddit. So, yeah, rock on. Anyway, I do agree with you, though, Florian, because I don't feel like we can kill Ragnaros, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him again. But at least, even if Ragnaros does come back, we can just give it a small little groan instead of going, well, what about all these other things that were involved at the time? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, because if he does come back, I will definitely groan. I will. But that being said, though, I won't have to worry about, well, what happened to Fandral Staghelm or any of that other stuff? You know, it'll just be, why did you bring Ragnaros back? Nostalgia? Shut up, Blizzard. Don't act like I like these things. So, I agree. Moving on, though. I have one little thing I wanted to add on to a little bonus discussion here right before the very end of the show. And that is that this is our 10th episode, guys. Oh, don't add sound. No, play it. No, why do you... Yeah! So I realize 10 isn't 100, or we haven't been doing it for a year or anything like that, but we've done it without really any problems 10 weeks straight. And that is significant to me because, I mean, a lot of what I was reading when I was looking to start this podcast and when I was discussing with you guys and the test episodes and everything like that, I mean, and I guess some ways we're 13 weeks straight because we did 3 weeks of testing before we actually recorded the first one. So, I mean, the thing that I saw in this is that when I was reading and all of that is that if a podcast is able to be consistent in its content, is able to deliver, and it is able to not really run into any snags or problem with anything along those lines, we've always had, in what I felt, good, strong, full content every week, and we've always delivered it very, in my opinion, effectively and very consistently. I feel as though we've set the ground basis for what could be very successful in the future instead of just, let's see if we can do this. We've done it 10 weeks straight successfully. So, yeah, I'm actually going to clap.
Nice. So thank you to the listeners.
Yeah, and definitely, thank you guys. Thank you so much for all of the feedback. And all of it's very appreciated. Yeah, I see the time, Evan. And we got off to some very large tangents there. And in celebration of this, I have ordered myself a new microphone, which I hope to be here by the next episode. So I will have my blue snowball microphone, and I hope to get off this headset. So yeah, I am very excited, and I look forward to doing this with you guys in the future. That being said, let's get to the end of the show. Are you drawing fish, Evan?
What are you talking about?
Are those fish? Maybe? Anyway, thank you everyone for listening to the show. If you'd like to contact us, the show email is thecastbar@gmail.com. The Twitter is @CastbarPodcast. The phone number is 508-738-2278. Currently, all of our shows are available on iTunes and Stitcher. If you'd like them to be somewhere else, please let me know. That seems to be sufficient for the time. If you really want them to be on YouTube, I can try and... It won't have anything interesting with it. It'll probably just be a picture, so it'll just be an audio video. But if you really want it there, then I will look into making that happen. As of right now, though, we haven't had really any requests for such a thing to come across. Let me know if there is someplace else that our show should be available. All of the music for the bumpers is done by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his work at incomtech.com. It's all licensed under the Creative Commons license. I believe almost all of it's royalty free. I didn't look through the entire site. If you'd like to get a hold of me, send an email to my attention at thecastbar@gmail.com or my personal Twitter, which is @SchwanMichael. My last name is spelled very interestingly, and that is Schwahn. First name is Michael. Evan, where are people able to find you?
Through the Castbar Gmail account, or also at EDCWow on Twitter.
Fun times. And Florian?
They can either get my attention with an email at the Castbar, or they can talk to me on Twitter at Phalanx. Spell it as if you learned to spell from Hooked on Phonics. FALANGX.
And yeah, you guys have a good week, and we will see you later. Dun 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 dun.
You are out of time.